Union Bank, your simpler, smarter bank.
Today's live. Good morning, and thank you so much for staying here with us. You're listening to Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. This is Smooth's Breakfast with Ayo Myra Esse.
And Valentine Ohu, good morning.
It is time for us to go into detailed analysis of our newspaper stories. To go through the analysis, the stories with us, we have Ugo. Good morning, Ugo.
My man, morning, sir.
He knows why I'm laughing. Everybody on YouTube, please watch, and realize. Now, youtube.com/Smooth FM Lagos, or type Smooth FM Lagos in the search box and subscribe.
And then we're also on our WhatsApp platform. So WhatsApp number is 0809 444 That's 0809 440981. 4440981.
That's right.
All right, Ugo, I'll start with you and I'll end with you. First story here from Premium Times. Very unfortunate headline. Cholera spreads in Nigeria as 146 confirmed dead in Kebbi. At least 146 people have died in Kebbi State, according to a health official, as the cholera outbreak in Nigeria spreads into other states. We have that the executive secretary of Sir Yahya Memorial Hospital in Kebbi confirmed the figure for the state. Now, as at the time of this report, Katsina State had recorded 75 deaths, Zamfara 30, Sokoto 23, and Kano 119 deaths. We've touched on this story about 2 times this week already, and it is important because we have a crisis on our hands, a health crisis in this regard. Please take us through the story.
Unfortunately, this is not the first time that we've seen cholera cases in Nigeria. I think we had something similar in 2019. We've had something, in fact, there's hardly any year that you don't have cholera outbreaks in Nigeria. This is just another example. And like we were saying, before we went live, so long as we have a lot of internally displaced people in the country, you have, sewage issues, people still, dumping feces in waterways, by the roadsides, or, in rivers. You're always going to have cholera outbreaks. It's just no two ways about it. And no matter what the government does in trying to maybe treat the disease, you're always going to have cholera outbreaks. So what needs to happen is actually to fix the source of these outbreaks. And the scary part of this is, it's now spreading. Before, it used to be some parts in, perhaps maybe just Kano, or, sometimes it's probably Yobe. But now you can see that it's spreading, getting closer to the middle belt. And as much as this might not get, the same kind of headline that COVID does, cholera probably kills more Nigerians than COVID
I mean, in the
does.
past few days, it has.
Yeah, it's just a very, very ravaging, sickness, and that's something that should get everyone really disturbed. And my fear too is that I'm even surprised that we don't even see it happening in down here, because if you go to the Saleko side, or post by Carter Bridge and all that, people are dumping fishes there.
The next street.
Yeah, on a daily basis. I mean, like, nearly half, if not, 3/4. I mean, this is just my guesstimate of the hawkers you see dump fishes in roadside and all. And so this thing spread really fast.
Yes.
I mean, so it's not like I don't think it's something that we should, treat with kid gloves. It's been happening for years. I think, perhaps people are just familiar with this story. Oh, cholera outbreak. And it never comes down here. People never really just think it's.
Well, the
serious.
thing is that, and that's why we're talking about this story today. It's moved from the north now. It's moving towards the middle, and you know how things spread really quickly in Nigeria. Like you said. Yes, we have open defecation, but also remember we also have people street food. So we eat a lot of street food, and we know that one of the big ways to transmit cholera or to get it is through ingested food and water. Yeah. So people make their food beside dirty areas. Yeah. So it's very easy to spread. It's acute diarrhea, and it's important, like you mentioned, that we face this. I believe that when a quick Google search will give you the first thing is very rare. under 500 cases in Nigeria. And I'm saying they need to update this statistic.
No, it has to be
Yeah, the
updated,
statistics, yeah.
and you have at least close to 3 million IDPs,
Yes, exactly.
internal displaced people, right?
Yeah.
And these guys are migrating from north down south and all over the country, right? Looking for how to survive, and these, are potential carriers as well of cholera, and a lot of people that are in camps. I mean, it's something that should be given the same kind of priority that that COVID-19 is given. Unfortunately, being able to fix it
Because it's not a
requires
global pandemic.
not even that. To fix it requires a lot of government intervention, and that's really where the problem is. COVID fixing depends on you and I. You buy your own mask. The government is not buying
Yeah.
the mask for you. You buy your own sanitizers. You avoid places. So you don't see a lot of government intervention in those areas. So it's a bit more efficient to curb things like that. But with this kind of cholera, that's government, and you know what I mean. So it's not gonna work.
I hope this is really sad. I hope that, like polio, we would eradicate and kick cholera out of Nigeria completely.
Well, that would be like kicking poverty out of Nigeria. So there's poverty in Nigeria. I mean, and there's a perfect correlation between poverty, high poverty rate, and high cholera rates. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's move on to the next story here. Toll gates. I have good news, or I come bearing news. Let me allow you qualify it whether it's good or bad. Toll gates are back on federal roads. Federal government approves policy, releases fees to be paid by vehicle owners. So the article in the Punch starts by saying that they got their report from the presidential aide on digital and new media, Tolu Ogunlesi, who has been a bit scarce since the Twitter ban. We have
He's on
heard
Facebook.
He's on Facebook. That's who got him on
Dominating
the streets
Facebook.
on Facebook. He
He's
was
dominating
Twitter.
Facebook.
All right, anyway, so Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, has said that the regulations were developed after extensive consultations with various stakeholders. And they've also released the classes of vehicles and how much they'll be paying. In this article, it talks about why they introduced this tolling system and when it will take effect.
Yeah, flashback 2019, right? I think that was the first time the toll gate governor himself, who is now on the toll gate minister, and Fashola seems to have this very good association with toll gates, from looking for finding cameras around toll gates.
It worked at my time.
Yeah, so
We're
he's
looking
really
for
the
money,
toll gate minister. So
I like that.
yeah, in 2019, that was when he announced or revealed, like municipals would like to call it, that we're likely to introduce toll gates, and he made it clear that look, toll gate was never, it was just stopped. It wasn't like it was
suspended.
Yeah, suspended basically. Yeah, so it wasn't like there was a law that stopped it or whatever, and so it was likely to come back. And seeing that it worked, in quotes, in Lagos, right? I guess his thinking is that he could replicate the same model across the country. And so based on that, the FEC has now approved 200 naira for cars, SUVs 300, private buses 300, and commercial buses 150, luxury buses and trucks 500. I still remember those days when I used to get into luxury buses to university in the east, and they had to stop at toll gate and then if I would there and all that. So I guess we're coming back to that time now. But what they did explain is that they are not adopting the US style of toll gates, which is basically the closed style. Most US intercity states operate closed style toll gate, where you basically pay per distance, right? But here there isn't the open one, which is what we've been used to before, where you just pay the toll gate money, and then you can drive as it doesn't depend on distance, so you just pay, and then till you get to the next toll gate again, you pay and on and on. Now, in principle, you would say, okay, look, that's going to increase transport costs for a lot of people and all that, but it's meant to provide some kind of exponential effect, because the funds will be channeled towards maintaining those roads, right? And so long as it's channeled towards maintaining those roads, then it will cut down, transportation time, to cut down wear and tear on repairs of vehicles. So one way or the other, it will impact positively on that transportation experience, including the cost. But where you worry a bit is Nigerians, knack for maladministration. So are you sure that this toll gate money is not another conduit for some people to enrich themselves? Which, let's all be honest with ourselves, is what we're very good at. Very good at,
And it's still
doing
a
well.
controversy with the Lagos, with the Lekki toll gate.
Yeah.
So if people are still not convinced that it's not going to private pockets.
The funny thing with Lagos toll gate one is even I don't think that's even different, because Lagos toll gate initially was a private public partnership, and the toll gate money was what was used to repay the building of the road. But at some point it wasn't viable for those guys, and whatever it is that they did internally within themselves, they found a way to hand it back to Lagos State, and that's why even till now, almost a year now, the toll gate is still shut. Now, but this one is pure government, and it's federal government, and it's civil servants. I mean, with due respect.
Although, can I just add before? I know people come for me and say, "Oh, devil advocate," but recall that some months ago, even last year as well, they had the minister. He had announced that federal government is going into a PPP, public-private partnership deal with some companies, and invited them to bid for the construction of these federal government roads, especially the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And that was one of the concessions, that okay, if you actually put in your money, besides the tax waivers that they offer to the likes of Dangote and all that this could be one way to repay them, or for them to shore up funds.
Like I said, in principle, it makes sense.
Yes,
I mean, like, if I sink in 100 billion to build dual carriage roads. By the way, toll gates are only for dual carriage roads. So where you have single carriage roads, I don't even told.
Okay.
Right. So if I put in 100 billion build roads, I should have some kind of part to collecting that money, and it also creates a very viable fixed income market, because what it means is that, so if I'm supposed to collect, I put 100 billion into road construction, I'm supposed to collect 150 billion, let's say over 10 years. That's how I've modeled it. I don't have to wait till 10 years to collect that 150 billion. I can just package it into some kind of bond, place it on an exchange, and then pension funds will come buy it, and then I take my money. So it creates markets and opportunities. So it's not a bad idea if it's done very well. So my only issue is when you leave these things in the hand of civil servants, you have to worry a bit, because of our knack for maladministration. What it means is that if that money goes into private pockets, then they can't fix the roads, and then government as well is usually very slow to reflecting prices. So if things go up, are they still going to be charging 200? What if the money they're collecting is not enough to maintain those roads, right? What now happens? It's not after a pothole, they'll tell you the money is not enough. So that's just the challenge. And then also, how do we determine that the toll gate money that we're collecting will lead to a reduction in the allocation, road allocation, for repairs of roads that the federal government currently does to the Ministry of Transport, and Works. So where's that money going to go to? Because in most countries, what you see is that they tell you, okay, this 20-30 billion or so that we usually budget for repair of roads every year will now go into healthcare or go into education, and then it starts to make sense for a lot of people. So these are the kind of comments we like to see here from government. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you. But by the way, they say they won't start tolling until they've the roads are motorable. So at least until they want to do their own, their commitment first, and then we start to pay them.
Of course.
Yes.
That's a given.
George from Okokumaiko says, to support Ugo's point about cholera spreading fast, 2 weeks ago, SBM Intel said that Zamfara was not part of the outbreak when they released the report about this outbreak. Suddenly, Zamfara is one of the top states. So, Allah day. Ian says, Basbos by senior man Ugo Dre. Grapevine edition. All right.
Jerry says, good morning. Will the government officials pay for the toll to know they wouldn't? According to this report, exemptions include bicycles, tricycles, motorcycles, diplomatic vehicles, military and paramilitary vehicles.
Wow. JJ says, so toll gates are back on our federal road. It says it worked in Lagos, so it will work in other parts. What will these tolls do? Let's go back in history. When the tolls were there before, was there better roads? It will not work, he said. We don't learn.
Interesting thing, they also said that this would be a template for states to adopt. So
Ah,
So get ready. They're just saying to get ready. By the way, federal government owns only 16% of roads across
Yeah.
the country, whilst the state the same 16%. It is the local governments, and that was interesting to read because
Yeah, that,
we
that most of
complain
the roads.
about is it 20
Most
two-thirds,
roads are
sorry,
local government
local
roads.
government. So
Yeah.
we complain about the state or the federal government when we pass a bad road, but yet we're not talking to the right.
But essentially, the
governments.
state governments control local governments. So at the end of
So
the day, it's them.
indirectly.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next story. Federal government explains reasons for high COVID-19 cases in NYC camps. To the Minister of Information and Culture, Lajilai Mohammed, he said two main reasons, and that is one, that they're testing more, and two, that there's been an increase in non-compliance to non-pharmaceutical interventions of COVID-19 protocols.
The first reason is what I don't understand. They are testing more. I mean, like, how is that a reason for
So that discovering more
COVID-19
cases.
outbreak?
So that
Come on, man. That's just pure statistics. I don't understand. The reason is the second one, right? Non-compliance. And it's not just restricted to NYSC, all of us. I think that, we watch a lot of this stuff on CNN and see COVID-19 outbreak in European countries, in the United States, in South American countries, in some, Southeast Asian countries. And we really can relate it here because there are just very few people that that maybe may have lost their lives due to COVID-19. But you know what? A lot of people are down with this virus, and there are a lot more people who aren't even bothered to go and do a test, right? So people just, oh, I feel sick, I've got malaria, sneezing, and they don't go out. So they don't bother going to the hospital because, I mean, by the time you take one or two concussion, you're fine, and then you move on. So I agree, what they've said here. I think that we've sort of relaxed, and it's not just NYC camps, there's hardly social distancing these days. Yeah, we have a lot more parties. People are throwing lavish weddings. People are gathering, and even people who wear masks don't wear it completely. Nose is open and all
People
that.
don't even wear
Yeah,
masks
people don't even
anymore.
bother. Marketplaces are booming like ever. So it's just God, that we're not, there's just no outbreak, and perhaps maybe our weather, which is probably one of the biggest blessings we have in this country, right? That maybe helps. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but you just have to think that there's just something about the environment that just helps contain things like COVID-19, SARS, and all those kind of viruses, because this is just a recipe for disaster here, right? Just mainly because of the way we live and the way we commute. I mean, think about it, Val. The way you do everything, whether it's bus you're entering, whether you're strolling down the road, just stop at that Lekki phase one bus stop alone. You see people just moving around. I mean, like, so there's just no way you shouldn't get an outbreak. So there probably isn't an outbreak. It all depends on how you define what an outbreak is. But I think that there are a lot of people who are just self-medicating and getting out of this. Because if you ask yourself, there's somebody out there who's down, who's got malaria, who's this one, headache.
it's very common now.
Yeah, very common. And there are people who have been dying, right?
Yeah.
I know your friend.
Yesterday we had the announcement that the first son of late Chief Gani Faremi,
Exactly.
Mohammed Faremi, died, and in this day report, it's reported that he died from complications of COVID-19.
There are a lot of people. I have a friend who lost, one of his folks, and they didn't know that, that person had COVID, and it was when rushed out to the hospital, and I was wrong. I don't know, it's COVID. All the person was like, oh, my chest, I'm coughing, I'm all that, and and at the end of the day, it was COVID. So
And this Delta variant is more virulent. In what you just said.
exactly.
Small complaints. By the time you see the symptoms, unlike the last variants, now between when you notice the symptoms to when the person passes, unfortunately, is very short.
Yeah, and now so the question is that why are we still doing NYC? Should they probably be at home? Do they need to do? I mean, like, suspend this stuff, man, because these guys go around the country, and so they probably bring this thing back home, pass it on to
From different regions of the country.
weaker people, elderly people, yeah, and then that's it. So I think that we have a lot to blame. Then we got to point fingers at ourselves, and of course the government as well has got to look inwards at their own policies and try to stop this. So it's not just the statistics.
Dr. Davis Nikoi says the OBJ government, on removing the toll then, gave reasons of embezzlement by toll collectors.
That's what I'm
How
saying.
will they curb this? Also, are we not being double taxed? Alternative roads built by probate guys are to be taxed.
Princess, this current toll gate management is going to be handled by private organizations. My former company, a holding company that owned a bank, won one of the roads. It's a build, operate, and handover arrangement. I was part of the project team.
Good.
It goes in line with our PPP arrangement. Thank you so much for that. Let's move to this oil spill story. It's actually good news. Shell agrees to pay Ogoni communities 45.9 billion naira compensation. Oh, good.
Money.
Hey, money. So, if you recall, in 2010, June 14 precisely, Justice Ibrahim Buba of the Federal High Court, Lagos Division, had awarded the compensation sum in favor of the good people in a suit that was filed by them. In this story, interestingly, Ugo, the money, I asked you a question. I said, how much do lawyers get percentage for this
My
deal?
response was clear. The money gets paid to the lawyer, and then from the lawyer, it goes
Gets
to
disbursed.
the. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if you're one of those who likes to follow the money like I do, I mean, the money trade will be very, very interesting and exciting.
Yeah. That's the right word.
You know, so um, congratulations first of all to the people of Ogoni. I mean, this has been a long time coming. Eventually won it, and by the way, they did waive interest because they won this thing 10 years ago or something. But it's been in court, ever since then. Shell did train on paying and all that. But eventually, they have agreed to pay for 45.9 billion naira. In dollar terms, probably half of what is worth they had paid 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we can also consider that a waived interest. But at the end of the day, it's good money to people. How it's going to be used, I mean, it's up to them. Oil spill has basically damaged livelihoods in those areas. So are they going to channel the money towards maybe climate change or improving the lives of the people there? Are they going to create some kind of fund to have people from those areas access so that they can start new business? I mean, I don't know.
Environmental
Or are they just
reclamation
going to
or
just
something.
share it? Make we just share the money. Anyway,
I hope not.
I don't know. And then if you share the money, I mean, there are good sensors. I mean, is it equal sharing or is it point sharing? Is it based on who's elderly or who worked hard? I mean, I don't know. So it's a lot of money, and I hope that it's not going to cause a lot of problems. Like my man Biggie says, more money, more problems.
I
So
think
I
that
hope
last
that,
that point
yeah,
is the
it's
point.
not going to cause divisions around somebody chop this. It's not my, so that's just my fear. But congratulations to the people of Ogoni, and I trust that the money be used judiciously. And
We
I
hope.
guess
Do you trust or you hope? Based on the precedent set by the
gotta
chiefs.
trust. Well, so I mean, people of this town have suffered too much. So I think that it would do them good to use this money judicially, and it's also an eye opener for a lot of other communities. Sometimes you gotta fight for your rights, and it might take time, but eventually it will crystallize.
Which is really great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the Debt Management Office debunking a rumor or what they call fake news or a fake report, media report that was published on this day newspaper with a caption: World Bank lists Nigeria and 9 others as high debt risk nations. We touched on this on Business Express 91 yesterday. But what are your thoughts on this story, especially with the way they categorized it as, or Nigeria as a beneficiary of the IDA loans?
Yeah, so IDA is International Development Association or whatever loans are loans that World Bank gives to very poor countries, and Nigeria is one of those very poor countries that get those loans. And the loans, like the DMO said here, are very low interest rate loans, like concessionary loans, less than 1% or so. So how that has turned into high risk, misconstruing it is what I really don't know. I don't know what paper that is, but
This day.
no, it wasn't this day. This day said it wasn't them. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
They won't
so-
report a rejoinder if it was.
Yes. So I sometimes have to be careful. I always tell people, don't just read headlines, man. Come on, just
Yeah.
read the story, because these headlines are very, very deceptive. Just for you to click and read. So read the story. So it's not true, but doesn't mean that we're not a high risk country when it comes to debt, especially when you look at it from a debt service to revenue ratio. We've said it here, it's over 90%. That's a lot of issues, that's a problem, because that affects your ability to service your debt or your ability to use money to fund infrastructure development. So in terms of a zero sum game, it looks like that's what we're playing, right? So the more debt you have, then what you're supposed to use to fund infrastructure, the less money you actually have from your revenue to fund infrastructure. Anyway, so but please, the story was misconstrued. I think I kind of agree here.
Thank you for that. Well, it's still in line, just to, in closing, since we love debt, or rather, we love borrowing, pardon me, does this affect our access to more borrow, like, loans, for instance?
I don't think so. We just got the IMF money recently, so it doesn't. In terms of debt to GDP, I mean, people don't really like that number because it makes Nigeria look like we're not, you know, our debt numbers are not bad. We're 33 or so percent. A lot of countries are more than that. In fact, there was a recent, I think there's a Nairametrics article this morning that I was reading my way here. In terms of total credit to the economy, Nigeria is on 44 trillion. That's basically double what it was before, this administration came on. So we're all debt pinching. Yeah, we're borrowing money like crazy. And a lot of that money is going to the private sector, really. Okay. So, and in terms, so if you that money versus GDP, it's not still, it's just I think something over 20% or so. South Africa's total debt, total private sector debt to GDP is over 100%, Valentine. So wow. Yeah, Nigeria is just private sector debt to GDP is less than 20%. So in terms of debt, we're not even borrowing, at the kind of levels that you see across the world. That's also because interest rates are very high and access to loans is also very, very tedious. I just few people they get the money, like Valentine. Exactly.
Amen. I claim it.
I agree with you.
By the way, that was good optics. Thank you. Let's talk about my least favorite topic, Twitter. Nigeria's Minister for Information, Lai Mohammed, said earlier yesterday that the country's authorities and Twitter have agreed on some deals that will ease off the suspension. Please take us through these details. You recall Nigeria suspended Twitter operations in June, days after the social media sites deleted a tweet from the president. Hugo.
Yeah, according to Mr. Mohammed, that lie just kind of sounds funny. Lying or lie. Yeah. Anyway,
where's the truth in this though?
Well, kind of maybe might be true. It all depends on how you report it. Nigerian government says is the ban on Twitter will soon be lifted as we're getting close to reaching full agreement. We have agreed on some areas. Hopefully, in the next few days or weeks, we will conclude. So I don't know what they put that weeks there for. I think Nigerians are anxious to have Twitter back. And Twitter didn't really, state it that way. They said our aim is to chart a path forward to the restoration of Twitter for everyone in Nigeria. But what is clear is that there is some kind of discussion going on, and I think the outcome seems positive and maybe in the right direction. I'm not a supporter of the ban on Twitter, ban on any social media platform for that matter, but I do support regulation of social media applications across Nigeria. I think in fact across the world. Strong supporter of it. I think that every country needs to regulate social media. I do agree with the government here that you need to cite an office in Nigeria. If you have a very strong presence in Nigeria, then you need to have an office here, even if it's one or two people manning it, because we've got to be able to access the people there. So I agree to a large extent. How about regulating social media is just banning. What I don't agree is banning any media platform at all, whether it's social media, radio, TV, or anything. Just don't ban anybody.
Same folks
most you
that
can
said,
do is fine. That's all.
Same folks that said they didn't stop Nigerians from tweeting, but anyway, we watch.
I look forward to what the coming days and weeks will be. But let me ask from a business point of view, Ugo. I don't know why. So Ugo, Nairametrics was quite heavy on Twitter. How has this ban affected? Do you think it affected the reach or in terms of how people access information?
Oh, a great deal. I mean, because most of our followers on Twitter, and most of the information we share, financial information we share, or financial literacy we share for our community on Twitter. So, in terms of maybe revenue, probably zero from Twitter. Hasn't actually been one of those sources of revenue for Nairametrics, but in terms of the reach and how we spread what we're doing, we use Twitter a lot. So what we've now started doing is basically divert a lot of that to Instagram and Facebook, and that means basically building a new community over it. So it's just reduced the amount of positive information that you can send out there, and that's what the government has basically done, because there are a lot of platforms who use Twitter to push out positive information. People learn a lot of things on Twitter. So by banning it, you've just basically stopped a lot of these things from going out. So that to me is just the side effects or the bad effects of this.
I'd have loved us to go through this last story on the approval of 4 power projects by the Federal Executive Council, but for lack of time, would you
Only thing I can say is that they are giving out $2 million, $2 million. So
Wow.
this country is just dollarized, $2 million. Like it's just like they're basically going to import those things, and it's time, Ayo and Valentine, we start to think about making a lot of things locally in Nigeria.
Yes.
Starting with even video apps.
We started with vaccines.
Yeah.
No, we
I've
haven't
seen even
started. We
video.
have
I mean, even video apps.
Yeah.
A lot of these apps used to edit pictures and stuff. Can't it just be Nigerian?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I'm working on something anyway.
Good.
Oh, well done. Thank
Good,
you.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ugo. Always a delight to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Same here.
And the jackets, please leave it on.
Yeah, right.
It's always a delight to have you on your outfit.
It is Thursday morning on Smith's Breakfast. We'll be back for Lagos Talks 981. In 8 minutes, you can share your thoughts on 014489981.
Union Bank.
Ugo, bless you, man.
Thank you, Ugo.